All right, y'all, I'm back with another podcast. And in today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about fear and different types of fear. I've kind of just jotted down a couple of notes and thoughts that came to my mind. So I thought I'd just go over it with you. I wrote down the first is the fear of failure. I think a lot of people have a fear of failure. I know that I didn't start doing these recordings until later on because I just felt like, what was the point? I didn't know what was going to be the outcome of them, but as I started to think, it doesn't matter. I just want to put them out there, so I should. And if it's being heard, then it is, and that's a good thing. If not, then oh well. So, the fear of failure, many people never reach their full potential because they're afraid of failing. They feel that they're afraid if they gain wealth, they may lose it quickly. Some people feel that, they don't want others to judge them. And if they, start to succeed at something and they fail at it, then they're considered a loser. They never tend to just try. Some people have the fear of the unknown. Some fear that they don't know where their life is going to take them. They don't know if they're going to get another job. They don't know if they're going to get another partner. A lot of people just fear that because they don't know anything or they don't know what's next to come, they have a fear of moving on. They have a fear of continuing to move forward because they just don't know. A lot of people have a fear of dealing with a mental illness. I know that a lot of the times there's people that because they're afraid of being judged, they don't take care of their mental health a lot of the times. They don't know where to go. Some people who deal with mental health, they have a fear of other people judging them and treating them differently. So they kind of hide it, they mask it in different ways, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever have you. It doesn't necessarily have to be something they mask it with that could be negative. Some people pour themselves into work a lot and they tend to just want to avoid a lot of things and they want to avoid dealing with their mental health because they feel like they're a weirdo or they feel like they're too different, they're going to be judged, and they feel like they're just, their jobs can be compromised, their relationships can be compromised. A lot of people deal with social anxiety. They tend to think that just by masking it in other ways it's going to change. That doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen if you don't take care of it the proper way. Not if you're an introvert, doesn't necessarily mean that you're dealing with a mental illness. You could just want to be by yourself and it's comfortable for you that way. It doesn't bother you. But if you're somebody who is constantly nervous around people, they make you just feel different. It could be the person, it could just be a bad person, who knows. But for the most part, if you're dealing with a mental illness, you have a fear of just being discovered that you have a mental illness, feeling that people are going to judge you and you're never going to be able to have a regular life and just be a regular person. There are some people who have a fear of having low self-esteem or lack of self-esteem. For most people, they don't want to admit it. They hide it behind maybe makeup. They hide it behind their jobs. They hide it behind their careers. They hide it behind their families. And they don't know. A lot of people, I think, this may cause people to feel like they're by themselves a lot. They feel self-conscious. They never feel good enough. They tend to shy away from compliments. They tend to look to others for acceptance. They never feel like they do anything right or they never feel like they're good enough. There's different types of people that deal with self-esteem differently because you would think that if somebody has low self-esteem, they would want somebody to boost their self-esteem. But then you do have the people that shy away from it in a way because they don't feel like they're worthy of that. Their self-esteem could have been shot down from when they were children. Who knows? They allow people to treat them terribly. They never seem to want to put themselves in the limelight. They shy away from things. They don't feel like they matter. Some people sometimes, with low self-esteem, they tend to be people pleasers. And a lot of people have a fear of just having low or lack of self-esteem. So some people may feel like they have to be, really arrogant and ignorant in times because they want to prove a point that they have a self-esteem. And if you ask me, that's a different story for another day. The, And there are times where some people have a fear of letting go. Many people fear of letting go of jobs, relationship, past things that they ever thought of in their childhood, anything like that. The unknowing, sometimes letting go of that is hard for some people to just move on and live in the now. Relationships and jobs, I think, are the most thing that people have letting go of. Toxic relationships, even though you think that some things are good for you, and in the long run you start to think that it's not. That is a fear as well. Letting go of relationships is a thing, because a lot of people tend to cling on to someone that they're in a relationship with, because they feel like that needs to value them. They need to feel like, if this doesn't happen, then I will never be me. They never really pull into the space of, I can do this by myself, or I can push myself forward. Having the fear of not knowing of what's next, I think, is something that holds a lot of people back. We never thought we would be here today, and here we are. We never thought we would be able to do the things that we're doing, but here we are doing them. So necessarily not knowing doesn't mean it's going to be a bad thing. I think if you put the not knowing with positive thoughts, that could actually benefit you in a way. Not knowing when the next gig is going to come, that could be the next one. It could be the better one. You could always think to yourself, the next gig is going to be the worst gig. The next gig is going to be a bad gig. But in reality, it could be your best. The next job could be your best job. The next apartment could be the best apartment. The next relationship could be your best relationship. If you don't put yourself out there and you don't just allow yourself to not know what's next, you're going to dwell in that for a very long time. You're going to miss out on great opportunities that could have been better than what you ever expected. I know that there are some people that fear of failing at being a parent. That's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day, but that's a real thing. I know that there's parents that live vicariously through their children because they maybe felt like they couldn't accomplish certain things, so now they're having their children accomplish those things for them. There are some children who feel neglected in that way, and there are some parents who fear that because they were those children that felt neglected, then they're going to become the parents that neglect their children. Some parents fear that if they aren't very strict with their children are going to be loose on the street. They're going to be judged for the type of parents that they are. So some parents allow their children to kind of run them in a way, if you want to use it as a, for lack of a better term. They allow their children to kind of just do whatever, go wherever. And you can't control your children. Once they get to a certain age, you really can't say anything to them. This goes out to all the parents that are struggling right now with wanting to not be their child's friend, but wanting to be the parent that has a listening ear, but afraid of being too lenient. I do think that being mindful and being at peace with yourself and knowing that you are doing the best that you can. If you really are doing the best that you can, you're going to know it. I think a lot of parents fear that. They fear that if they aren't aware of what's going on at all times, then things aren't going to go the right way, which is true. There are a lot of situations where you have to be mindful that your children are your children. They have thoughts, they have feelings as well. There's just something that you have to figure out some way, somehow down the line to make it work for you. Everybody is different. Everybody raises their children different. Everybody has their own thoughts and views on how they should raise their children. I'm not here to tell you how. I'm not even here to give you advice on how to. It's just I'm saying that I am someone that has to be mindful of how I come off as a parent, how I come off as a mother, because it will affect my child later on. That is a fear I think I used to have. I wouldn't really call it a fear now. I think I'm just grateful that I'm aware and I'm mindful that my thoughts, my actions, and my behaviors will affect my child in the near future and will affect my child now. So it's best that I take that into consideration and not use it as a fear. And I really hope that you don't use it as a fear either. Use it as a lesson to be learned to help you grow. I do believe that once you have children, they can actually help you grow if you allow them to. There are times it's going to be stressful because, there's not an actual manual. There are people judging you as you're growing, as you're being a young adult and you're actually raising a child. If you're doing it on your own, God bless you. But it is something that you are, like I said, you're being judged for. You're already being told you shouldn't have had your child in the first place, and there's so many criticisms coming from left and right. And for those of us who are young parents, yes, you're being judged. You should have went to college. You should have thought about the person that you were with. You should have got your finances together. There's so many shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but you didn't. Y'all comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on failure.